Welcome to our morning show studios. We have a full week of shows and guests. Kicking it off today, the leadoff hitter is Mayor Todd Coppernoll from the city of Richland Center. Happy New Year.
Hey, Phil, how you doing today?
I am doing fine. Yeah, what about you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me back. It's going to be above freezing, I think, 4 or 5 days in a row. So what Wisconsin winters are today, for the first time in years, we had a heavy snow right at the end of November, and then real winter cold in early December. Then we melted it all off, got it back. Now we're melting it off. That consistent winter of our youth just doesn't happen anymore, where the snow's on the ground for months at a time.
Your workers in Richland Center clearing the snow and whatnot, they had like one day, I think it was on my birthday, November 29th, where it was a big snowfall, but otherwise it's been a little more quiet downtown.
Yeah, I measured on that one in my yard. We had 7 inches, and there were areas around that got more than that. It was a good storm, and it piled the snow up real good, right? And the kids were excited to play in the snow, but it's gone, and the snowmobile trails got a few days in. Then they had to close, and we got to the point where my front yard was completely bare again, and then we got a little bit of snow, and now I see the forecast again. It's going to break freezing several times, and I already see, I live right across from the cemetery, and you can gauge by the hillside, the steep hill in there, it's already half bare. And, you know, it's, what are we, early January? That's just not what we knew when we were kids, but it's today's reality.
It sounds like, according to our official predictor, John Granger, about 12 more snowfalls.
All right, John, I didn't know he had that title.
Yeah, he is. He's official. So.
He is. John's a good guy. I'm sure he's well qualified.
Yes, absolutely. Some other things concerning the city and in downtown. Closing of the landfill. I think we wanted to talk about that as well.
Yeah, we do need to talk about that. I want to be real clear on this point. That was not what anyone associated with the city wanted to do. It wasn't just a choice like we don't need it, we don't want it. That is not what happened. What did happen was the contract that we had with our garbage collection service was up for renewal. So the city did a request for proposal to get bids to collect our trash and recycling, and we got 5 responses. And of the 5, only 1 was willing to continue to operate that landfill. 4 were not. And we tried to change their minds. No one was willing to do that. And the one that was willing, their bid was about $100,000 higher than where we wound up. And obviously, we hear all the time, and we understand, property taxes go up, school did this, county did that, city did that, state law changed, whatever it is, and always pressure to control costs for the people who live here. And so another $100,000 just was a problem, obviously. And so the city council did their job. You know, they considered all of the bids. They asked the questions that should be asked, and they chose, and that's what came with it. And that wasn't what anyone wanted. It wasn't just a choice to move on. It was a financial decision. And what was disappointing to all of us, you know, the pleas, you know, hey, people are used to this. It's been there forever. It's convenient. It just didn't move anybody. It was all about cost. And again, I mean, I get that. Those businesses are, you know, trying to control their own expenses and so on too. But that's where we wound up with that, is that the landfill is closing this spring. And there will be, you know, in the property tax bills that went out to city residents, there was an update on that. There's a letter in there. There will be 6 large item pickups instead of 2 now. And if you have something bigger, heavier, something in between pickups, you'll be able to contact the garbage removal company, and they will charge you for this, but they would come to take something from the curbside on an arranged date. Do not, if you have a couch or a chair or something, don't just put it at the curb. That's not how it works. You need to have it, it's called tagged. If you don't understand how that works, just contact the city clerk's office and ask for direction, and they'll tell you what to do and how to handle that. So, and then several people have asked me, what about the brush pile? That's still going to be accessible because it's not behind the locked gate, so that's not changed. Okay, if you take branches and so on up there, you'll still be able to do that. But yeah, I don't like it either, honestly. But that was just, given the choices we had, you know, after a lot of consideration, that was something the city council went with, which was to try to control costs for all of us, which I think people can appreciate and understand. And in this case, that's what happened. Now, I have been, for a long time, I've been telling people very clearly that budgets are going to be challenging in the coming years. This is why I tried to put the entire city council on the finance committee last April. They refused to confirm that. Instead, to their credit, most of them began to attend the finance committee meetings, even if they weren't appointed to that committee, because the city budget is the biggest job the city council has every year. It's millions of dollars of everybody's money, what gets funded, what does not, and so on. And so we had several meetings on this, debating the budget, prepping the budget, and then a special session with a public hearing to approve the budget. And when we did that, literally nobody attended. So Rod Perry, as most people know, videos the city council meetings, and they're available on YouTube and Facebook. And Rod actually turned the camera around and got a shot of all the empty chairs. I can't explain that. I talk about it a lot, about it's important for people to be involved. The meetings are publicly noticed. They're open to the people. They're covered by WRCO and the Observer. They're captured on video and shared on YouTube and Facebook. We're doing the things we can to keep information in front of our people. And, we're passing the budget that decides all these things, and nobody came. Okay. And then you get the questions afterwards, and so then you answer the questions, which are not, this is not a Richland Center thing. So don't get down on your city. This is not a Richland County thing. This is not a Marshall Township thing. This is going on all over the place. If you watch the news for 2 minutes, you will see massive budget shortfalls in places like Dane County that have all kinds of money, but they literally had a $31 million shortfall. So they cut a bunch of jobs, and they cut this, and they cut that. And then I saw on the news, I think the average property tax bill in the city of Madison went up over $700 across the board. And this is after several increases like that, maybe not that big, but consistent increases in recent years. And this is in Madison, in Dane County, that's getting all the growth. They're still fighting these same things, and every mayor I talk to, every city administrator I talk to, it's all the same stuff. Inflation hit municipal governments as hard as it hit anybody's household, and as we've all had to adjust what we can afford and what we buy and don't, well, the same thing is true of local government, and this is why effort has to be ongoing at all times to grow the tax base where you can, and that, I'm going to say it again because it's always going to be true, that brings us back to the phrase net new construction and why new buildings are so important, because it's how you grow the tax base according to state law. You can't just, the levy limits are frozen at the state level, and that brings headaches like this. But on the other side, those rules were put in place to try to contain the growth in property tax. It's put municipalities in a difficult place. It's put school districts in an even more difficult place. Ask any school district representative from any school district. That's, what's going on with schools is really driving increases in property taxes and has really made for some aggravation. The folks serving on school boards out there certainly have their hands full. And then that leads to, I wanted to touch on this just for everybody out there that can hear me. It's not just in the city. It certainly isn't just in the city. What's going on with schools in the state. I have said this on the air before, but last year, voters in the Milwaukee School District passed a huge referendum, $252 million or $254 million, gigantic. And what that did, and I can't explain the formula, I do not represent the state, I've never had to know this, but what that did, it forced a gigantic reallocation of state aid going to public school districts, and there were hundreds of districts that got less state aid because Milwaukee got a lot more, which was touched off by this huge referendum in the largest school district in the state. And so that's causing its own problems that nobody at Richland schools, Riverdale schools, Baraboo schools could have foreseen. It was something that happened in Milwaukee that then hit them hard all over the place. So if you don't know this, I know Tony Kurtz, the last time you had him on the air, he touched on potential consolidation of school districts. And I believe what he said was at the state, they really didn't want to tell people they had to. They were hoping to for the people to choose, but based on declining birth rates, which have been going on a long time, there's just less babies being born than there used to be, and by a lot. And then increased competition. We've got online school, homeschool, private school, public school, open enroll, all this stuff. It isn't what it was, when Todd and Phil were kids. And it's just a different landscape with less kids to go around in the first place. And state aid is tied to your enrollment. So a loss of a kid is a loss of funding in a district. So multiple bills, 5 or 6, are being debated in Madison right now that are aimed at this issue, basically trying to prepare, I guess, so that there's an avenue to help with the cost if school district consolidation becomes a reality, because that's not going to take 10 minutes and it's not free. It's a major undertaking to do it, which of course would bring a lot of emotional upheaval. Nobody wants to lose theirs. Perfectly understandable, but the math is the math. Buildings are expensive to build and maintain. All of it, we know. So I just want people to be thinking about bigger picture things sometimes than what you see, in your space every day. We're all busy in our daily lives. We all have a lot of things to worry about, so we do. And some of these things can sort of bubble up on you. If you're not on the school board, city council, county board, you may not have your head on some of this, and then there it is. Geez, another referendum. Wow, they might really close our school? What for? We just passed one of those things. Get your head in the game and do it now. Talk to your school representatives. They'll be honest with you. They have no reason not to be. The school board people and the school district administration people, it's not correct to blame local school officials for what's going on with property taxes tied to education. They're working within the state laws too, and they can't stop a giant reallocation of state aid that they didn't do, but then they have to respond to that. They either have to cut costs, which means something you might have wanted for your kid is gone, or a staff reduction or whatever it is. They have to do that, or they have to raise more money, and then that's going to mean another referendum. And then people are going to say, wow, how much is enough? Which is a perfectly understandable question. How much is enough? Well, so what that long story short is, it's definitely a period of transition in schools, and that's why you see they closed the grade school in Loganville and Lone Rock and Arena and multiple in Richland Center and so on and so on and so on. Multiple program cuts in Prairie du Chien, significant concerns at Boston, on and on and on. You can't name a school district that's not dealing with this. It's just to what degree and which things. And so just as an elected official, as one of the public voices in this community, I wanted to say something because I think it's easy. It's very easy to just react and want to blame a specific district or school board or administrator when maybe your taxes go up or something gets cut. It's a bigger issue than any district, any school board, or any administrator, a far, far bigger issue. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself why state government is investing so much effort into sort of preparing for the possibility of some school district consolidation, because they're doing that. And Mr. Kurtz said that when you had him here. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was important because so I represent the city and I'm talking about schools. Well, that's because if you live in the city, your city government, your county government, and your school district, Richland School District, in that case, we're all representing the same people, okay, in the city anyway, we are. And so all of these things affect the people I represent in a major way. And so having said those things, those kind of scary, dark things about what education costs now and how funding keeps changing and all the challenges that it brings, I also want to make sure, again, because I represent the city, this has nothing to do with any other district. I want to praise the Richland School District for the obvious results coming from a lot of hard work, as you see improved test scores, as you see, you just hear of the culture change. You hear it from the kids, you hear it from the parents, you hear it from the staff. Just good things going on in the Richland district, and I'm excited about that. And I'm grateful for all of the effort that those folks have put in, because they're working under very difficult circumstances, and still they've been delivering improved results. And I think everybody in Richland Center not only should be aware of it, should be both grateful and proud that it's happening.
You've noticed some of the numbers projected for not just the school districts, but for the county and the city in the next 10 years or so, and it does show quite a decline, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is going to dominate. This issue is going to dominate decisions and planning at cities, counties, townships, schools for the foreseeable future. This information actually first came out, I think, in 24, but it's been recirculated lately by some state representatives. It actually came out from the state and is projecting from 2020 to 2050 a look at which parts of the state, based on birth rates, average life expectancy, average age of the people living there now, current trends of folks moving in, moving out, which places should expect a growth in population versus a decline. The Driftless area projects to lose a lot of people. Aging population, we don't have. So what's happening? Fewer babies. I've said that several times because it's a very big deal. So less young people born into the families that live in these places, okay, but also a continued migration to cities. And if you live here, Madison and La Crosse, which has been true for a long, long time, but Dane County, for the next 30 years, well, at this point, 25 more years, projects to have more growth than any place else in Wisconsin, and pretty comfortably so. Just a continued explosive growth in Dane County. And, that sounds great, and there are great things associated with it, but then that's driving costs of living down there, because all that infrastructure costs a heck of a lot of money to put in place, so on and so forth, which is why Dane County had a $31 million budget deficit and had to make a bunch of cuts that they're still fighting through. So Dane County, huge growth. Of the Hudson area, which is the Wisconsin side across from the Twin Cities, consistent growth because of the presence of the Twin Cities. The Green Bay area, consistent growth. And a really interesting one, right place, right time, if you consider population growth to be a good thing. Not everybody does. Trempealeau County. Kind of always sort of been in between La Crosse and Eau Claire. Kind of was just a quiet little place. Well, I lived in La Crosse from 89 to 92, and when I was there, Onalaska was experiencing explosive growth. The young families were there. The people that owned businesses and the executives in the businesses, they were building homes in Onalaska. It just took off. And Holman was tiny. It was smaller than Richland Center then. And they needed a high school, and they were worried that they couldn't find the money. And it just took off. It became the fastest growing city in the state because it was next to the north. And that's where you can grow. La Crosse is between the bluffs and the river. We have a similar issue here. You can't grow sideways. There's a river over there and steep cliff over there. You can't go that way. You got to go north and south. And the terrain to the south of La Crosse is prohibitive. And to the north, you run into Onalaska, which is why Onalaska got the growth. And then they run into Holman, which is why they got the growth. And West Salem is next. They had some growth, but they're kind of landlocked. So what happened? It jumped all the way to Trempealeau. And so Trempealeau County, being south of Eau Claire and north of La Crosse, is getting growth now, projected for a while. They're just, if you are for construction and more people, this is their time for a while. Okay, so the dark side of that is that Richland County projects for the largest population decline in the state through 2050. There are others very similar. Crawford County is very close to the same number. And if you look at the northern counties, the northern third of the state, it's just ugly. And how many fewer people they're projecting. And it's just a lot of older people, not a lot of young people kind of thing. And what happens over time when that's true. Okay, so understand when I tell you that again, state law to keep the bills paid and grow money calls for new construction. as a means to do that, a primary means to do that. And if you're living in a place that's not a big city or really close to one, so we're not Trempealeau, we weren't next in line from La Crosse, we're not Sun Prairie that can go from 5,000 people to whatever they are now. I don't even know where it is, 35, 40,000, wherever it is now, from 1970 to 20, in 50 years, that happened. Or Verona, or Cottage Grove, or Waunakee. We are not next door to Madison. We are not next door to La Crosse. So all the small cities that are not the lucky recipient of sort of spillover from a major metro have to do for themselves. We have to do it ourselves with a consistent plan to stay ahead of this thing, because it's a projection. It's what their state is saying will happen if nothing changes over the next 25 years. It doesn't mean it has to happen. That's the key point. Sitting still will lead us there. Movement, action, growth, activity, positive, can change this, needs to change this. Because think about it for a minute. If 30% of this population in this county goes away, which is what the projection says, about that anyway, I'd have to look it back. I think it is 30% by 2050. If that were to happen, look around a room and almost 1 in 3 people aren't here anymore. How's your tax base now? Okay, or attracting businesses and all those things. Okay, but that, again, that's a projection. So why have I been so hardcore about the term net new construction and the need to build where we can, when we can, and the need to get buildings in, and the need to get people in, and the need to what that all feeds in terms of how it affects the municipal financing, meaning city, county, schools, what it means to the ability to keep businesses we have and bring some new ones in. It's critical. It's absolutely imperative. And so the focus has to stay. It is there now here, and it has to stay there to try to head that off. And we're committed to it. We have been for several years. But you see numbers like that, and you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to this and do the things you have to. The point is, this city must pursue growth. We must. It's not going to come and find us and say, pretty please. We got to go get it. And that's county-wide. That's the city for people that live in the city. But if you live in the city of Richland Center, your taxes support the county too. So you need to be the best friend the township's ever had too. You rah-rah Forest Township, we love you, man. Get some new homes in there. Go, dude. Because it affects school districts, same thing. You all know about the referendums because you've been through several, okay? And then I just told you about the state having a big reallocation that hit every district out here in the wrong direction, which, again, what can they do? Try to raise money or cut costs? It's going to be about people. It's going to be about people. What do people need? They need a decent place to live. They need a place to work. We've got people in the city doing remote work more than we've ever had. We've got people in the city working here, working there. I heard from a family, meeting with them again today, owns a successful business in another part of the state. Want to expand it here. It's too early for me to name them. It's very preliminary. We've had one meeting. They're coming down today. They're very serious about it. They are a member of the family, recently moved out here, loves it here. They want no more of city life. So possibilities actually exist to change the trend and avert what would be a complete reshaping in the wrong direction, downsizing. No way around that. I hear become friends with the mayor over in Viroqua, and he talks about the same things every time we talk. They're in the same, fighting to maintain population and get a little bit of growth if they can, talking about how to fund the school district, talking about this and the same things you hear me say. Same stress over there, and he says the same stuff, and we got to do what we can. We got to get people. We got to grow. He's not wrong. Ask Muscadet, ask Boscobel, ask Spring Green, ask Baraboo. Reedsburg, I know a lot of growth in Reedsburg. It's paradoxical. Some of the closer cities that had rapid growth then had, much more expensive cities to operate. Consistent, measured growth is what we're trying to do here. But I'm going to keep saying these things. I'm going to be mayor till April 15th when I will leave office. And every time you hear me, I'm going to say the same things. Pay attention to the trends coming from the state. They are not my numbers. They are not the city or the county's numbers. They're coming out of Madison. Pay attention to the trends and what they're telling us we're headed for if we do not change. Again, the critical phrase, if we do not change. And so what does city policy, county policy, township policy, school district policy have to be all about? Well, it can't be what it's always been, because what it's always been is not going to be here in 20 years. That's known. That's not a theory or a myth. It's known. That's just simply the average age of the people and how many we have and how many babies are coming in and so on. You just do the math as it stands right now. It doesn't work long term. Okay, so change has already started here, and believe this, change is coming. The choice will be which change. Is it the experience of contraction as people pass away and are not replaced, or is it the experience of changing what we offer so that more new people come? We can change what we offer so more people come, because there are a lot of people who don't want to live in a city anymore. They're out there. They're looking for places to be. They're going to pick which small city they go to. We want to be them. We want to be them. So anyway, I felt compelled to say that. I've said some of these things several times. It literally wakes me up at night sometimes. It really does, because these are my people. You love me or you hate me, that's your call. I'm doing my best for everybody that can hear my voice, and so's everybody else at the city. And we are keenly, acutely aware of what I've been saying on here, and we're doing everything we can to turn that trend. I'm hoping and inviting every city resident to participate in the changes we've got to make.
Richland Center Mayor Todd Coppernoll is our guest in the studio today, talking about issues dealing with the city of Richland Center. And I know you have a meeting coming up tonight, a safety commission meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, safety committee tonight will meet, and one of the things on the agenda, which I want the public to hear, is the future of the fire department. Not the department, it's not going anywhere, but the fire station. Just so you know, the fire station in Richland Center is more than 70 years old now, and with that, we're at the point now, there's consistent maintenance costs now, old boilers, old roof, HVAC, all the things you think would wear out. And also, just take a look at the equipment the guys are using, our firefighters are using. It's very different than a fire truck from, 1958. A lot of larger equipment. So it's getting harder and harder to fit what we have into the space. So Scott Gold, who is our fire chief, came to me in December, and he said, well, let's talk about that. We'd had a study done kind of showing what this current building will need over time and what maybe projected costs would look like if a new fire station was built. Now, to be clear here, there are not imminent plans to build a fire station, okay? What we're trying to do is plan correctly, prepare for the inevitable building of a fire station whenever that comes, because buildings don't last forever and equipment continues to change and so on. So back in 2020, several of us at the city had proposed use of a lot the city owns. It's in the North Industrial Park. It's right off AA. It's right in the corner there on Industrial Drive and AA. And the city owns that lot, and city infrastructure is right there, utilities and so on, high-speed internet, and, of course, the street, Industrial Drive, that will connect to Highway 80 into AA. And Mr. Gold asked me if I thought the city might entertain using that lot, allowing that lot to be used for a future fire station whenever the time comes when one is built. We wanted to move the ambulance service out there into a new building in 2020. Building costs took off, and a decision was made not to do that. But at the time, the idea had been to have the ambulance build from the side of the lot next to Jensen Casting, start at the lot line and build toward the center, leaving room so that if fire ever wanted to add on, they could join them so we could put them under one roof. Again, this is a cost-saving measure, and it seems pretty obvious to most of us. One building's a lot less money than two. Makes a lot of sense. So right now, the discussion is strictly with the fire people, but What we're talking about is possibly doing a lease like $1 a year. Just hold the land. Maybe do a 10 or 15-year lease for $1 a year to the fire district to hold that land. Put a big sign up, future home of, because a great deal of work would have to be done, fundraising. It's many millions of dollars, 10, 12 probably, to build a new fire station. And that's today's numbers. So if you build one in 10 years, what are those numbers? So this is simply to sort of placehold a spot for a new fire station to begin the work of then working on long-term how to correctly fund a new fire station so that you don't get in a situation where you go, we got to move. This building doesn't pass inspection, the roof, whatever, this and that, and now you're building a fire station on the wrong terms, right? Oh no, we have to. Well, we don't want to do that. We want to build it when we are prepared to do that, and you have to do that by preparing to do it. So the safety committee tonight will discuss the issue, and should they like it, they will forward it to the city council for their consideration. It will also then be, once that's known, the city's position is known, will then be presented to the fire board, which briefly discussed this last month, just as an introduction of the topic. And they basically said, well, let us know what the city thinks so we know where we're at. And that's what we're working on the fire side.
Okay. We mentioned the election coming up. Candidates are circulating papers, candidacy and non-candidacy. The deadline is coming up, Todd.
It's tomorrow. Close of business at the clerk's office tomorrow to return the nomination papers that you take out, get signatures on to get on the ballot. And we have, as we do every April, the election will be the 7th of April, the first Tuesday in April, and we have this time, as every time, 4 or half of the seats on the city council up for election, which they are every year. Districts 1, 2, 3, and 4. And District 1, incumbent Ron Fruit is not seeking re-election. There is one candidate I'm aware of circulating papers in that district, Mr. Chris Jarvis. In District 2, incumbent Tom McCarthy is not seeking re-election. There is one candidate I'm aware of, Mr. Frank Hoffman, who is circulating papers in District 3. Incumbent Doug Martinick is seeking re-election. I'm not aware of any challengers. In District 4, Ryan Cairns is seeking re-election. I'm not aware of any challengers. And for mayor, I'm aware of 3 people. So if all 3 of them return those papers by end of day tomorrow, we'll actually need a primary in February for the mayor's seat. And the 3 people I'm aware of are Mr. Elijah Kramer. I'll just do them alphabetically. Mr. Elijah Kramer, Ms. Karen Templey, and Mr. Gary Wilder have taken out nomination papers. I don't know where they're at in the process of getting their signatures. I don't know if any of them have turned them in yet. All the people I just named or anyone else that's doing so, in case I missed anyone, they have to be back in the clerk's office by close of business tomorrow. And then, as I said, more than 2 candidates for any of those positions would force a primary in February, and we do absolutely have the potential of a primary for mayor. And then, of course, this is going on at the county, too. I happen to live in the district represented by Dave Turk, who's now the county board chair, and he's up for re-election, and he stopped by the house for signatures yesterday, so I know there's county board folks and school board folks. And again, that election, anything that needs a primary happens in February, and then the general election is the 7th of April.
Challenges for the mayor that follows you. You've talked about some of them on this program, but yeah. There are some challenges. Yeah,
it's going to be everybody out there, and literally everybody out there, has things on your mind that you would prioritize. Were you the mayor or were you on the council? But the big picture, it's just going to be the budgets, the city budgets in the coming years. COVID ended, the pandemic ended, but its impact is still everywhere because of what it did to inflation and then what that has done to municipal financing, municipal funding. So as you go through there will be another police union contract in the future. The employees want a cost of living adjustment, right? I mean, they're working hard out there. You've got whatever bills go up. The state could always mandate something else. Now you have to pay for this too, or cut aid. You still pay for what you did, but there's less help coming from Madison. These things happen all the time, and local government doesn't control those things. They deal with those things. So the budgets in the near future, county, cities, schools, townships, it's a real challenge. It's going to stay that way for a while here. And so just a lot of hard work and keeping not only the mayor's focus, but like just going at the city. So the city administrator who takes direction from the elected people. So you've got the mayor, the administrator, and you've got the 8 members of the city council. Really can't look away from not just this year's budget, but what the future is going to look like. And I'm going to encourage what I tried to do once already, and that is, in my opinion, either put the entire city council on the finance committee or dissolve the finance committee and just have all the finance stuff debated at a council meeting. And that's to make sure that all 8 of the decision makers, everyone at the council who has a vote, has their head in that game every day. That's the biggest concern that I would have for whoever comes next as mayor or on the council or any of these city or county or school positions.
We talked about, before we went on the air today, about the challenges of AI. We've kind of saw that with our Trivia-thon this year as well. But that's a real issue for everybody in all walks of life, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I'm concerned about it. People are deciding that AI knows everything. If you got it off an AI platform, it's true, cannot be argued because it's AI. Well, just for an example, I don't typically use AI. I'd never really touched it. And just a few weeks ago, so many people will AI this and that. So I tried it. And I asked it who my grandfather was, Lawrence Soule, and it got everything wrong. It told me he was a tank mechanic in Europe in World War II. My grandfather did not serve. He was drafted, and when he reported for his physical, they found a hernia and sent him home. He never served. And it detailed for me that my grandfather was in Europe as a tank mechanic. It named his 3 children. He had 4, he and my grandmother. It named the 3 of them, 2 of whom never existed, and missed 3 that do exist. I can prove that one. Hello, Jelaine Brewer at Jones Chevrolet. Did you know you never happened? And Mom, Jeannie, you didn't either. But you have a brother David and a sister Mary. I thought you should know that. Somebody should should have told Grandma about that. And this thing detailed it. It said Grandpa came home from the war, was very active in the Legion, which he was not, had a large dairy operation. My grandfather was a butcher, and that is one of his favorite pastimes in his later years was telling war stories to his grandchildren and speaking as one of his 12 grandchildren. That never, ever happened. The man was not a veteran. And this thing had details. And it took me probably 20 edits. I'm arguing who my grandfather was with the AI platform. I won't name them, but I'm telling you, a lot of you are using them. It's probably the one that's best known. We'll leave it at that. And they kept telling me who my grandpa was not and insisting that that's who he was. And it took me no, this isn't right. This is who my grandma was. This is who my mother is. This is who this and this and this. This is where grandpa lived. This is what he did. Boom, boom, boom. And then next time I'd log in, half of that would be gone and the same wrong stuff would be in. And even some new wrong stuff started to show up. So now it's pretty correct. I don't know if it's 100%, but it's pretty good on who he was because it finally stopped arguing back to me. But that took many attempts. And I mean, this thing was selling me on who my grandfather was not. And then I know when you guys did your trivia-thon, you had some people adamant, insisting that you were wrong because AI told them they were right. And I know the one I'm aware of came up in relation to Star Spangled Celebration and who had appeared and who had not. And Phil, I'm pretty sure you interviewed pretty much everybody. And you were involved at times in booking the acts and all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you think you know who was here?
Yeah, I have a pretty good memory. Plus, we have the posters too. So.
Yeah. And I'm not blaming. Look, this isn't about somebody who thought they were right. The point is, the reason they thought they were right is because AI told them they were right, mm-hmm. and AI was wrong.
Yeah.
That should scare you a little bit. And if it hasn't yet, please get scared. Hey, AI is huge now, and it's going to be much, much, much bigger. We all forget it, man. It's happening.
Well, I mean, there are good applications to it, too. But I know what you're saying.
I'm not opposed. I'm explaining. Because it said it doesn't make it true. You got to understand this. If it doesn't know my grandfather and it won't believe me, Grandpa died. I was 49. I knew the guy a little bit. Hey, we met. And this thing was telling me how wrong I was. No, thanks. I wasn't. You are. So don't go there and think you're getting great information, because you might be getting a bunch of garbage, because it's in its infancy. The nuances haven't been worked out, and not even close to what AI will eventually become. Do I think it's got tremendous potential? Yes. Do I think it's got potential risk? Yes, again. And in the meantime, it's got whatever it thinks is right. So you got to fact check. The human being using the service is still responsible for what they believe and what they go forth with. And calling up me and telling me I'm wrong because AI said it, or telling the guy that was doing Star Spangled the whole time it was here that he doesn't know. Slow yourself down, please. Slow yourself down. I'm watching people get in vehement, nasty arguments because somebody used AI and they know they're right. Well, guess what? If it doesn't know who my grandpa is, but it's certain that it does. If it doesn't know who came to Star Spangled, but it's certain that it does. Those are two easy examples. You can ask it simple Green Bay Packers trivia, and you will be shocked at how many times it's wrong.
Mm-hmm. I had in my notes to ask you about Connect Cities. Would you like to talk about that?
I would. So that's got some real potential for the downtown in Richland Center. It's a program that's been around a little while. And Richland Center was accepted into it, I think in October. So coming basically in the new year here, there's a group forming, downtown business owners, and they will be working with this group, again, Connect Cities, to just sort of kind of keep downtown activity revitalization, looks to the future, active, right? So we've actually had a lot of improvements in our downtown in recent years, expansions of some businesses, new businesses moving in, increased activity down there from where it was 10 years ago. But yeah, anybody can tell you, and they're not wrong, that there's a lot more to do. We know that. And there's challenges. You're talking that some of those buildings are 140 years old now. All right. And there's a historic district down there, which brings challenges sometimes to wanting to renovate or change the historic building. Okay, so there's some stuff, but obviously we want a healthy downtown, and so even though, yes, it's true that we've had a lot of wins down there, it's also true we need a lot more, and we know it. So the city took action. We applied for acceptance into this program, and we got in. And so that is a sort of a fun thing that the next mayor will have, I guess, to work with and use, and I'm glad to see it. It's just an example of the kind of things communities can and should do to ready themselves for the future, and always be growing and looking forward.
So preserve a little bit of the downtown and the buildings and things like that. Is that
preserve some, maybe help upgrade some, help some of the downtown owners. It's this is way too vague, but brainstorming. I will allow, because it's almost going to time itself perfectly, I will allow the next mayor to really detail this to the public, because that person will take office April 15th, and as we roll into the new year, and that's a new initiative in the city, it almost marries perfectly to it. But it's just helping the downtown. Just leave it very vague and wide open right now, because the details will come, and there will probably be a time, Phil, when you may have somebody from this organization on the air. But that's not yet now, but it's coming.
Rotary Lights had another successful year.
Yeah, the one thing that happened, they had more weather closures, I think, than they've been used to.
They did, yes.
Which is too bad. But you know what? We hadn't had an early winter in so long. And we just talked about how cold, warm. But they had some snow days and some cold days. Nonetheless, they have so many organizations wanting to volunteer now. It's fun. I love that. I just love it. And I did take Kim through there, and the lights were better than ever, which I say every year because it's always true. And the people responsible for getting it all set up always do such great work. And then so many families, businesses, everybody, organizations have their trees up, and they take pride in them. And it's just a great thing for the community. And it was again. And thanks to all, again, the people that run the grounds, get it set up, everybody who has a tree in there, but especially to the volunteers. who stand out there, whatever the weather brings, and greet everybody and do the work. Thanks, everybody. It's a great example of what a community can do.
You bet. Brings a lot of people to our city.
It does.
All right, Mayor Todd, thanks for coming in, and we'll see you again in February.
Phil, thanks for having me on, man. Next time I see you, we'll be hopefully through the coldest days of the winter.
There you go. And February is the shortest month of the year.
It is, in fact. Thank you, sir.
We look forward to it. You bet. Mayor Todd Coppernoll joining us on this portion of The Morning Show.